Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Ayin Tes Amud Aleph, 9 lines from the top. The Seif of the Mishnah, in contrast to the case of Korban Pesach, states that even when you have Bosar that is Nitma and you have Chelev that is Kayim, it's still a valid Korban. You can be Zorek the Dam. Says the Gemara, Masnisim Mani, who is the author of this Mishnah? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehoshua. It's the sheet of Rabbi Yehoshua. As follows, the Tanya. It says in the Brisa, Rabbi Yehoshua Omer kol azvochin shebat Torah shenishtayir mehen kezayis bosar or kezayis chelev zarek es hadam. Rabbi Yehoshua says whether there is a kezayis of either bosar or chelev that is kayim, even if the other one is nitma, you can be zarek the dam. Kechetzi zayis kosher bosar, kechetzi zayis chelev, ein zorek es hadam. However, if it's half of a kezayis of each one, it's not mashlim a shear to be mitzdaref to make a kezayis, because half of it is achilas hamizbeach, and half of it is achilas ha'odam. And therefore, it's not mitzdaref. He goes on to say in the Brisa, U'ba'oilo afilu b'chatzi zayis bosar u'b'chatzi zayis chelev zorek es hadam ibnei shekula kolil. Whereas when it comes to a korban oilo, which is completely brought up on the mizbeach, then even if it's only chetzi shear of chelev and chetzi shear of bosar, it will yes be mitzvah because they're both going to be mashlim the shear of achilas mizbeach. The Brisa continues with a mincha, afa pisha kula kayemes lo yizroik. And when it comes to a korban mincha, even if the entire korban mincha still exists, still you cannot zorek the dam. Ask the Gemara, Adkan the Brisa, ask the Gemara, my mincha, my avirita, what is mincha doing over here? What does it have to do with being zorek the dam? The mincha is not a korban where there is dam. So why should we say otherwise that even if there's a mincha, you can't be zarek the dam? Omarab Papa to explain minchas nesachim. We're talking about minchas nesachim that's going to be accompanying the korban. Salke daitach hamino kiven de asya mikoyach zevach kegufe zevach domi. I might think just like when it comes from the koyach of the zevach, just as the zevach itself, we say if some exists, a shear, it will then be able to be zarek the dam. So too, we might think that the minchas nesachim too, it can also have the same koyach. Since it exists, it will also be able to allow you to be zarek the dam. Karmash malan. So we have just explained Shita's Rabbi Yehoshua as our Tana, and we explained that Rabbi Yehoshua says whether there's a kezayis of basar or there's a kezayis of chelev, even if the other one is tamei, nonetheless you can be zarek the dam when it comes to shar korbanos. Ask the Gemara, chelev minolon. Where do we know that chelev is enough if it's kayim to be zarek the dam? Answers the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yochanan says the name Rabbi Yishmael. Umatu ba mishum Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chanina. Some explain in the name Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chanina. The pasuk says, I'll read the entire pasuk as follows: V'zorak hakoines hadam al mizbeach Hashem pasach oyel moed. The kohen zorek the dam on the mizbeach that's going to be the Pesach oyel moed. V'hiktir hachelev l'reach nichoyach laHashem, and he will burn the chelev as a reach nichoyach laHashem. Says the Gemara, bringing this brisa and quoting the pasuk. V'hiktir hachelev l'reach nichoyach laHashem. Chelev afal pi she'ein bosar. So you see, the fact that he's just burning the chelev is enough, even though there's no bosar. That's enough to make it so that it's a valid korban. Ashkechon chelev. The Gemara says we find chelev that you can go ahead as long as you have chelev kayim. You can be zarek the dam. Then yoseres hakaved shtei klois minolan. But where do you know the other parts of yoseres hakaved and shtei hakloyos that can also be allowing one to then zarek the dam? First, the Gemara challenges, where do we know that this is even so? Heicha amrina dezarkin. Who said that we can zarek the dam just because you have the yoseres hakaved and the shtei kloyos? Says the Gemara, Mediktani b'mincha, afal pisha kula kayemes lo yizrok. By the fact that it's stated before by a korban mincha, we said that even minchas nesachim, even if it's kayemes, you're not zarek the dam. That minchahi deloy. We'll make a deal and say it's only the mincha that you can't be zarek the dam. Aval yoiseres hakavid ushtei kloyos shapir dami. That would be valid. Minolon. Where do we know that this is so? Explains the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan Didei Omar. Before Rabbi Yochanan quoted Rabbi Yishmael. Now Rabbi Yochanan himself explains further that not only is it the fact that the chaylev is kayim, but even if the yoseres hakavid ushtei kloyos is enough to be zarik the dam, because on Makra it says l'reach nichoyach at the end of the pasuk that we quoted. Kol sha'atem mala l'reach nichoyach, and therefore it's including yoseres hakavid and shtei kloyos. The Gemara now explains why we need both. The itzrich lemichtav chaylev, the itzrich lemichtav shtei lemichtav reach nichoyach. We need to write chaylev, and we also need to write reach nichoyach for both cases. Why? The ikas of rachmana chaylev. If he only wrote chaylev, havamina chaylev in yoseres hakaved ushtei kloyos loy. I might think only the chaylev, but not the yoseres hakaved and ushtei kloyos. Because rachmana l'reach nichoyach to include them as well. Because of rachmana l'reach nichoyach. Havamina kol ha'oilin l'reach nichoyach va'afilu mincha. I would say anything that's going to be a reach nichoyach, including the mincha, can also be valid to be zarek the dam. Because of rachmana chaylev to say davka chaylev and not the mincha. The Gemara now brings the next Mishnah, as we spoke about many times before, that when the kihila, the kahal Yisrael, is either entirely tamei or partial or roiv, majority in a state of tuma, they may bring the korban pesach in a state of tuma. Says the Mishnah, nitma kahal aruboy, oy shahayu hakohanim tameim v'hakal taharim, or even if the kahal is taharim, but the kohanim are tameim, then yasu betuma. The korban pesach may be brought in a state of tuma. The Mishnah goes on to say, nitma miut hakahal, if only the minority of the Kal Yisrael is tamei, hataharin oisin hasarishoin, v'atmein oisin sasheni. Then the taharin, they still bring the korban pesach rishon, and those who are miut, that are tamein individuals, they'll bring then the korban pesach sheni 1 month later on Yudalet B'Iyar. The Gemara now brings a brayso to expand on our Mishnah. Tan Rabbanan, Harei shahayu Yisrael tamein v'kahanim v'kli shares taharin. The brayso says when the Yisraelim are tamein, even if the kohanim and the klei shares are taharin, as long as the Yisrael, we're talking about either the rov, certainly if the majority is tamein, or shahayu Yisrael taharin v'kohanim v'klei shares tamein, or the opposite, when the Yisrael are taharin, or either the kohanim and the kli shares are tamein, v'afilu Yisrael v'kohanim taharin v'klei shares tamein, yasu betuma she'en korban siva v'chaluk. States over here that if one of these three, either the Yisraelim or the kohanim or the kli shares, is in a state of tuma, you still bring the korban pesach in a state of tuma. And the brayso concludes she'en korban sibor chaluk, meaning to say that even the taharim are nigrar, are nimshach, after those who are tameim, and therefore they all bring the korban in such a state of tuma. Omar Rav Chizda says, Lo shanu, that which we just taught by the klei shares who are tameim, we will bring the korban pesach in a state of tuma. Lo shanu ela shenitma hasakin betamei meis. That's only talking about when the kli shares, the sakin, the knife, is tamei from a tamei mace. It came in contact with somebody who came in contact with a dead person. A dead person is an avatuma, avi avosatuma, and it also is metame another person to be an avatuma. But it also has a chidish that's metame any klei mateches that comes in contact with it. That means to say that it will come in contact with the person who will become an avatuma, and the kli will also, who comes in contact with that person who is tamei mace, will also become an avatuma. The Rachmana Omar, for we learn in the Pasuk, Bechalal Cherev. It says that a person, Bechalal Cherev. Why mention that Bechalal is a Cherev, the dead person with a Cherev? Was it important to us how the Chalal died? Why does it make a difference that there is a knife, a sword, inside of the dead person or in contact with the dead person? Cherev Harehu B'Kechalal, to teach him that it has the same din as the Chalal. It has the state of an Avatuma. They call mitame legavra, and a mitame person. Normally, right, when it comes to just an avatuma, let's say like a sheretz, a dead sheretz of the shmona shrotzim comes in contact with a person. It's mitame the person to make the person into a risha letuma. Here, the chiddush of the tmei meis, it makes him into an avatuma, and so too even a kli that comes in contact with the person who's tmei meis will also become an avatuma. The mikora kemis avid. Initially, the korban pesach was made, but tumas haguf, the kor is kemis avid. It was made with a person who had a tumas haguf, who was chayiv koris. So in that situation, we have a special kula to bring the korban pesach in a state of tuma. Aval nitma desaki hasakim betumas sheretz dilabasar hu demetamilei. Whereas when it comes to the sakin, the klisharis that became in contact with the sheretz, so therefore it's only a rishon letuma legavra lo metamale. The person who is shechting the carbon does not become himself tameh when he's using the knife to shech the carbon pesach. Then taharin avid tmein lo avid. Then they bring it. The taharin bring the carbon pesach and not the tmein. Mutav yoichal betumas basar belav. Because it's better that the one who is who's going to eat the tumas basar, which will be over alav, than somebody who is going to then be chayiv to eat the basar in a state when he is chayiv, his goof is chayiv, and he'll be his goof is tamei, and he'll be chayiv kares. So therefore, that which Rav Chizda is qualifying is only specifically talking about a situation of that which came in contact with a knife, a klishares, with a tamei mace. Alma, the Gemara concludes, Kesov Rav Chizda, Tuma dechuya hi betzibur. That Tuma is only dechuya, that if we can limit the amount of Tuma, or can have Tahara being done instead, then we do that. But otherwise, right, then we do that, because Tuma, we don't say it's hutra betzibur, it's only dechuya betzibur. V'chein Rav Yitzchak, Tuma dechuya hi betzibur. V'Rava, Rava is cholek, and Rava says, afilu tmei nami avdi. Even those who are tmei will also bring the carbon pesach. That means to say, even if they're not going to have the same degree of the tumas haguf, they will also bring the carbon pesach. My taimo. What's the reason? It says in the pasuk that a basar that is talking about a carbon that came in contact with something that is tamei, so you have to burn that piece of meat. The end of the pasuk goes on to say, and the basar that is not tamei, it remains tar, then the tar person shall eat that basar. And therefore we learn as follows: when we don't apply the first part of the verse that states any time the basar comes in contact with that which is tamei, it shall not be eaten. Then then we don't also apply the seif of the pasuk that says that the basar that is remaining tar, only the tar person eats. The Karinam Bey, however, wherever we do apply the pasuk in the Reisha, that when it says in the Reisha that the basar becomes in contact with tamei shall not be eaten, it has to be burnt, and therefore the knife that became tamei, let's say with a sheretz, so then we say there lo yoichal, you shall not eat that basar. Karin and Bey, then we also apply the pasuk in the seif of habasar kol tor yoichal basar. Then even those whose bodies become tamei, then also they will also eat the basar. So you see, Rava comes to be choilik and says it depends. Even in a situation over here where he doesn't have the same degree of tuma of somebody who's going to be chayiv kares, he'll only be over alav. Nonetheless, such a body that also is nitma will also then go ahead and eat and be able to partake and be mekayim his chiyuv of Korban Pesach in Pesach Rishon.